Good afternoon and welcome to another GotSafety webinar presentation. I am Rick Roman and I'm along with
Michael Crowley.
And today we have a presentation for you regarding some new laws that are going to be going into effect in the next few months, and we just wanted to make sure that everyone's up to speed. So I will go ahead and get
Nutty
this up
things
on the
happening.
board.
These are
What was
nutty
that?
things happening. Rick, if I may just say as we get through this, if you'll tell me if a fly lands on my head, Rick, during this presentation or on some part of my body that I don't say, I would appreciate it if you'd let me know. I don't know why they don't do that on TV. You know, Rick, they wave your arms or something over there.
Yes, it'd be nice to get a signal, wouldn't it?
It would be nice to get a signal sometimes. I mean, it's just odd. I mean, not that we're taking positions of the vice president, the debate that happened, but the fly. I can't stop looking at the fly. Maybe that's been the whole America. We're just, we get sidetracked.
Yep. Anyway, we did a webinar back in end of March, beginning of April, when all this COVID stuff started happening. And boy, I certainly would have never thought at that time that 6 months later we'd still really be in the midst of this. And
Nutty.
there's just new information coming out, and they're obviously having to expand some things. And there's new rules coming out that are going to affect all businesses in California starting in January. And so we just want to make sure that you guys have all the information that you need and that we can be here to support you and help you in any way we can.
Yep. And make sure you don't kill the messenger, people. I mean, come on. You after this webinar, you are going to say to yourself, who in the world is running the state of California? You are going to say these things. Now, we have all respect for COVID. So as we talk about these things, I just want to let you know and preface that we have respect for the COVID disease. We know that there has been hundreds of thousands of people have died, 200 and some odd thousand. We have respect. And for everybody that's lost somebody that they love, we just want to come out and say we totally, our prayers are with you, and we just love you to death. But man, trying to do business in the state of California, boy, if you are able to do business there, you are like a friggin' maverick, man. You are like a unicorn in this town if you're able to turn a profit with the regulations that they put upon us out there. My gosh.
Yep. So as we get into this, we're really talking about some increased authority that Cal OSHA is going to have in regards to the COVID-19 and inspections that they're doing, and also some new requirements for employers related to notifying and so forth of their employees. So what we're talking about here really is the California AB 685.
685.
Yep, this was just signed into law in September by Governor Gavin Newsom, and it is going to take effect January 1st of 2020.
Rick,
You know what? I put 2020 and I should have put 2021.
Yeah, 2021. The first mistake, Rick. We'll take it out of your pay later. You know, that Governor Newsom. I mean, you got to love this guy. I mean, he loves to make the laws. It's like he wants nobody to work out there, Rick. I'm not going to be a pessimist this whole webinar. I just can't. But I'm telling you, this is a tough one, Rick.
Yep. So my apologies on the number there. It's January 1st, 2021, not 2020, but it is effective till January 1st of 2023. So we're talking about a 2-year law, of course, unless they wind up extending it. But at this point, we're talking about 2 years.
Don't even suggest it, Rick. Good.
So it changes, as I mentioned, the rules regarding employee notification, some record keeping and some reporting requirements for the employer, and then also Cal OSHA's authority to issue OPUs, otherwise known as an order prohibiting use, and them to expedite issuing serious violation citations. So as we get to the first area of authority that's increased, Mike, talk a little bit about what an OPU is, why they're issued, where they've got to be posted and when they can be removed, and of course, how it's going to apply now with the COVID.
Well, the OPU is a great acronym. You know, safety professionals, I always say that we love these acronyms, orders prohibiting use. And so what is an OPU? We call this in the industry red tagging. If OSHA comes out and red tags you, it's also known as an OPU. So the red tagging process is you either have an operation, a machine, or a facility of some kind that it provides a danger or a hazard to your employees, and Cal OSHA is capable of going out and popping that area with a red tag. Now, where where are they issued? They're issued somewhere in California, like I said, at the machines in an area of your facility, or just your whole business altogether. They can reg tag that. When it comes to where must be posted, either on the machine or business or in that area, they've got to post them there. And the key word here, the key question is, when can they be removed? They can only be removed by Cal OSHA, the very people that put them on, the district office that puts them on. They've got to go out there and verify it. So the red tagging is a very serious thing. Not everybody gets red tagged. I mean, it's not as high as you'd think, but this is something that they do. So that's the definition of a red tag, Mr. Rowland.
Yep. So basically, if you've got a situation where you've probably maybe had a lot of transmission of COVID amongst employees, that they would think that it's putting a danger with the other employees, that they might close your facility, in which case you'd have to post it at the entrances so that your employees would know that they can't come in until you get this situation under control. And
Right.
then OSHA would relieve you of that tag. So that's the first area that they've increased the authority. The next is on the expediting issuing of citations. So what we're looking at here is what is known as the form is actually called a 1BY, or also known as an intent to cite letter that companies will receive when OSHA is about to issue serious citations. Talk about, Michael, how that has been used and what the difference is going to be here again related to COVID.
So a brief history of the intent to cite letter. These haven't always been around. So a number of years ago, the intent to cite letters came out. So when somebody received an accident, or they had an accident, or they had OSHA citations coming, district office would send you just the citations, and then you had your 15 days to appeal the process. Then they came out with the intent to cite letter. And basically the intent to cite letter says, okay, we are going to cite you with a serious violation. They don't send these out for generals, but I'm going to cite you for a serious violation. Here's the letter that tells you what code I'm connecting it to. Now, why don't you think you're guilty? That's the question. Why don't you think you're guilty? You can respond to us and let us know. So this is the kind of letter that it is. It is not the citation, and it doesn't do that, but it is basically a, before I get you, what are you thinking about? Why do you think you're innocent? So in this process, if you ever get one of these intent to cite letters, you should call us immediately. I mean, you should just call us immediately and let us teach you how to respond to such a things, because you don't want to incriminate yourself, right? There's a lot about this letter when you get it that you just don't know. But here's the key spot about this letter. It slows down the citation process, because they have to wait for a period of time for you to keep the intent to cite before they're able to issue the citations. And the reason why Rick is bringing this to the webinar is that key element, that there is a waiting process that takes place after you get an intent to cite letter that will sit there, that slows the process down a little bit. Rick?
And then now what makes a difference with the COVID-19 is that this has been lifted,
Yes.
that they don't have to send this letter to you. So
Right.
whereas on any other type of serious violation that they may intend to cite you on, they'll have to send you this letter. But on any COVID related serious violations, they're just going to, like Michael said, basically speed that process up by going instantly to issuing the citations.
Correct.
So those are really the two areas that OSHA's authority has been increased. Right now, they've added COVID as a reason of something that they can red tag a business for, and then now they can expedite the issuing of the citations. Now let's talk a little bit about the employer responsibilities now. So this is the part where, so it says here, employers are required to notify employees and employers of subcontracted employees within 1 day of being made aware of an employee testing positive for COVID-19.
Wow.
This notification has to be in writing, and it can be delivered by, and is not limited to, personal service, such as handing them a written letter of sorts, an email, a text message. This written notification has to be delivered in a method that can be reasonably anticipated to be received by the employee within 1 business day.
Oh,
what are your thoughts on that, Michael?
You know, Rick, that sentence is a catchy one. The written notification must be delivered by method that can, and this is the key word, reasonably anticipated. Now, that word right there with OSHA really means not reasonable and not anticipated. It will get there within one day, because your reasonability of what was reasonable anticipated by the employer may not be what OSHA's talking about. So you've got to make sure you can get it one day. Let's say it's a Friday afternoon, they're going home for the weekend, and you think Betty's coming into the office on Saturday, and you reasonably anticipated she was coming, and she doesn't come, and you send it to her work email and she doesn't get it on her smartphone. You're dead. You are dead. So make sure you do this. You just look at that word reasonable and just know this. The people that are deciding this are Cal OSHA themselves. And even though they are good people, and I want you to know I do love them, they can be unreasonable sometimes. And so just know this, reasonability means you will get it to them in one day. Yeah, that's
Yep.
tough.
So that's a big key thing now. Now that we have to give some sort of written notice to all of your employees that somebody in your operation has tested positive as of yesterday. We
Yeah,
would have to have that information to them today. Additionally, this notification has to be both in English and in the language that is understood by the majority of your employees. And furthermore, if the employee has a representative, the representative would also have to receive that notification.
mm-hmm.
So let's talk now a little bit about what needs to be in that letter. So we know now you have to get them this information within 20, within a business day of,
Right.
of knowing of the situation. But it says here in this letter, so this is not going to be a quick little note. You have to have in there the COVID-19 benefits that exposed employees may be entitled to, such as workers' compensation, COVID-19 leave, company sick leave, state mandated leave, supplemental sick leave, and any other negotiated leave and provisions.
My gosh, Rick, is anybody staying? Everybody seems to be leaving for some reason or whatnot. I just don't know. This is a tough one for me. And when you talk about this, just know that this is the law. That this is, like I said, don't kill the messenger here, people. We want to make sure you're clear on this and so what it is. And we have all respect for this. And the reality is 95% of the people are surviving, 95 to 98 people are surviving from this disease. And the state is really putting down, these are some serious things that you've got to put in. So in the letter, like you said, the first part, you've got to put all these ways that they can leave and how they can take this leave of absence. So they're clear on that. And remember the language that they speak, or the majority of the people at your facility speak.
So in addition to that information, to notifying them of all of the possible leaves that may be available to them, also have to put in their anti-retaliation and anti-discrimination protections for the employees. Any disinfection and safety plans that the employer has or plans to implement. So you got to let them know what are you planning to do to go forward to make sure that that we're not going to have a further spread of this. And then on top of that, the notices must omit identifiable information of employees who have tested positive, and notices to identify employee could be in violation of HIPAA and American Disabilities Act. So you can't you can't identify who it was that was ill.
He can't identify who's ill. So we can't say Joe was sick. If you were next to Joe, you got to get tested. You can't do that. You've got to say, now listen, if you were by the second cubicle on the right row of the west wing, that area, you got to get tested. That really is what we're talking. You've got to be able to say, if you were in the west shop working around the press break at any time. Now, here's the thing. If you've got two guys in the shop, well, you just outed Joe, right? That really is the hard part about this, where you've got to be able to say geographically in the facility. Now, you may say, well, my office isn't that big. If you're in here, we're all need to test. Well, that's true. That is true. But if you have a sizable place, you're not going to shut everybody down to get them tested. You've got to really be able to pinpoint that and get creative so you don't hit any and you don't out Joe or Betty. I love those two names for examples, by the way. And we can say, listen, those two people, we just can't come out and say Joe and Betty. We got to be able to name off reasonable territories so that we can get there. Tough.
And I can imagine, obviously, people are going to be able to deduce who likely is the person, right? So I'm sure it's not a situation where you're responsible to make sure no one knows who it is, but you just can't be the one that is outing who it is. So like Michael says, if you're saying like, hey, if you were in this particular department or in this building, then what they figure out on their own for themselves is their issues.
Yeah.
So then on top of that, Then the record keeping requirement is if you wind up in a situation where you do have an employee that you then have to notify the rest of your employees, then you need to keep a record of that for a minimum of 3 years. So you would want to keep a copy of whatever it is that you handed out or passed out to your employees and file that somewhere, that if OSHA comes in 2 years down the road and wants to see your records, you better have a copy of this. So those are the requirements that we're talking about. Is you got to notify your employees if you have a problem.
Yep.
You've got to you've got to keep records, and then there's one other piece to that here, and now we're talking about reporting. So additionally, under section 2, employers are required to notify the local public health agency. So we're not talking about notifying Cal OSHA like you would of a serious accident, but it's your local public health agency. So those are usually county run. So you'd have to know who your county health department is, and you're going to have to report that has jurisdiction over the work site of the outbreaks. So it might not necessarily be where your office is. If you're construction and your job sites where this happened is in another area, you need to be reporting to the jurisdiction, whoever has jurisdiction over that area, within 48 hours. And an outbreak is defined as 3 or more employees who have tested positive within a 2-week period. So now that's where you're going to have to notify them here. So these notifications are going to have to include, now here you're going to include the employee's name, because we're not reporting that to other employees. You're going to have the employee's name, phone number, the occupation, the work site, business address, and the NAICS code of that work site.
Yep.
Employers must continue. Now, here's the part here, Michael, that you're going to want to elaborate on. They must continue to notify local health departments of any subsequent employees who test positive for COVID-19.
And when you look at this process of saying you've got to notify, now we're not notifying Cal OSHA, but we're going to notify these healths. You've got to make sure you're clear that you're keeping records that you've notified these, because you're dealing with a government entity. So if Cal OSHA comes in and says, well, how many cases have you had? How many sickness have you notified, with like proof that you notified it? That's the first thing I want to say. You got to figure out how to way to do it. So do it off a cell phone, keep the records so that you can track that, so it's just not lost in the corporate phone, an emailing system. Contact those guys and make sure you can do it. When it comes to this last sentence Rick just read, oh my gosh, I mean, think about this. Employer must continue. The word is continue to notify the local health departments of any subsequent employees that. So here's our interesting thing with this. This law goes to 2023, and the word is continue. It doesn't say continue for 6 months, and then if you don't have it, you can restart the system. So what we're saying is, and this is the way we have to interpret this, we have to interpret it as it reads. So if you get 3 or more people that get hit by COVID within a 2-week period, you will be notifying people till 2023, everybody that gets notified, even if it's one every 7 months, even if it's one every year, they want to be notified for the history until 2023 takes place. And like Greg said, they may extend it, but I have a hard time believing they're going to extend it. But that's the logic to it. So if you want to have a fun new thing to track, get people sick with COVID. So what I'm suggesting to you is this, that when you find somebody with any sort of sickness, we're not joking around. You got to send that person home, give him a day off so that he can take care of himself, and then send him to get a test. I mean, when you see somebody with symptoms, and so we're always learning about this COVID thing, and I know that we always think we know, and then they come out with some sort of new thing that we've got to, that they're saying that they didn't realize it did or do. But just know, 3 people, you're notifying people till 2023, because there's nowhere in the code that says unless or for only 6 months. It's just continually.
And the thing is that these government agencies do communicate with each other.
Yeah.
So even though you're reporting to the health department, if OSHA comes in and, like Michael says, and they want to see records of this, that you've reported this stuff and you don't have it, it's quite likely that you're going to receive citations from OSHA. It's not the health agency that's going to be coming out. So you got to make sure that the record keeping is really key, right? You really need to be able to show if you're calling these people, you probably should be able to, you should be calling them from your cell phones where you can have records to be able to prove that you had these calls made and what have you, but you need to keep this. And then of course the last part here that I didn't get to is that this does not apply to health facilities. So obviously, I guess in those areas, you're probably going to have a bit more of that going on, and so
they kind of assume you're going to have sickies.
Yes. So they fortunately excluded them from all of this. But this is really so these are the things that you got to make sure you're doing. If you have anybody get sick, you notify all the employees.
Yep.
If you got to keep records of that to show that you've been notifying them. If you have to have an outbreak and then you're notifying your local health department, and then you obviously want to keep records of all that. So that's really what the law changes are and what's coming up that's going to be going on for the next 2 years. And we're just 3 months away from that, right?
We are just 3 months away from that, Rick, and trying to make sure we've got some good news. We're going to get into training. We're not done with the webinar just yet, but you just need to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that going through this, you're not alone in this. You have resources. GotSafety, obviously, that's a cliche thing. No fear, GotSafety is here. But the logic that we've done, that Rick is going to get into, of how to avoid being cited, all of these resources, if you are a client of ours, we've already provided you with this. We have resources and we're changing them all the time. If you are a very, very, very select few that has been invited to this webinar just to understand who we are and what we do, this is part of how we work and what we do. So I hope you're asking questions in the comment bar. We've got Haven on the side here that's listening in. He's going to be reading these to us at the end. So if there's any questions on what we've talked about what the rules or regulations are, Rick and I would love to answer those for you live so we can go through that. But now, Rick, we're going to get into, obviously, right, Rick, the exciting part, how not to get cited by the wonderful government that is thinking of great ways to make it tougher to do business. Rick, what do you got for us?
So yes, and thanks for bringing that up, Michael. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. If you type your questions into the chat, we'll be answering those at the end. But so when all this, with all of this going on, I, thought, pretty much early on here that there's just no other safety issue that you have going on at your jobs that your employees are more acutely aware of than this COVID-19. They're seeing it on the news. It's in social media. They're seeing it before their eyes when they try to go to get something to eat at a restaurant, or if they go to the grocery store or Walmart or whatever, they're just seeing this in action. And if they get the feeling that their place of employment is not doing what it needs to be doing to keep them safe, you just knew that they would be filing complaints. And so from a recent Cal OSHA advisory committee meeting, some information was released that from the month of February up until the end of July, Cal OSHA, in just total complaints, and of course they get complaints all the time, they received a little over 8,300 complaints. Of those 8,300 complaints, 5,007 of them were COVID related. So that's about 60% of all their complaints were COVID related. And the citations, we're just now starting to see them. They're finally coming out where they've been citing people. So it's really important that you do the things that are required to make sure you're staying compliant and to make your employees feel safe, and obviously to keep them safe, and to make sure that you're not having problems and spreading sickness. And these are some of the things, like Michael said, that we can help you with. And we just want to make sure at the very least that that you're thinking of these types of things that you need to do. So the first thing is you got to have a COVID-19 response plan.
The infectious disease program, Rick, legendary nowadays, legendary.
So tell them a little bit about that. Obviously, we've created that for clients.
Bob, who's Bob's Plumbing, Heating, and Air? I mean, he gets so much advertisement on our webinars, Rick. Who the heck is Bob? We're just picking that one out of hot air. There's probably a Bob Heating and Air around here. We think it's a good name. But what it is the infectious disease program is a program that we put together because Cal OSHA is requiring one. And you're really finding yourself in a spot where it talks about the disease, what you're going to be doing to limit things, social distancing. It just kind of outlines what your company's doing to keep the employees safe. And then on this step, the how avoid a citation is the Worksite Assessment. You really got to do a job hazard analysis on your facilities again. If you haven't done that since the beginning of COVID-19, a job hazard analysis, also known as a JHA, the reality is you got to, because things have changed. Work circumstances, lines, working the lines, wearing masks, not wearing masks. You've got to be able to implement this stuff and put it in so that the employees can have it. When it comes to number 3, the posting of signs and signage, this is an important piece. It is not good enough under the Cal OSHA system that what the citations we're seeing to be able to just say, yeah, I got a sign on the wall that says social distance, but I don't care. That's a problem, because what Cal OSHA is doing is they're citing people under the general industry clauses of unsafe work conditions. So they're not specifically tying it to a smack dab specific code that you got to separate people at the break area, or you've got to have changing gloves for the microwave or whatnot. But what they're suggesting is, depending on the inspector that comes out, what they feel is reasonable or not reasonable in this kind of a historic pandemic is going to be the problem that you're going to be facing. And so when you see the employee posters and signs, obviously the bathrooms, wash your hands, but putting stickers on the floor and things all over the place so that they know is important. And then obviously the training aspect, Rick. I don't know if the next slide goes over some training topics or not, but the training is key. And the good news is we've got this all for you. And you know how we work. We're not charging you per piece or put on. And so when you guys were on our service and before the pandemic started and this all happened, we were all frantically, our office went really into core mode, and we started creating pandemic lessons and training to make sure that as soon as you guys were able to get your butts back to work, we were there for you to make sure. And so we're really proud of that. We've created the videos and everything. But as you list at these 4 things, we can take all of these government regulations and comply with all of them with just these 4 things. And I'm telling you, it's not as hard to do. I make a little bit of a stink about the crazy regulations, but you know what? They're probably for us good. And so with that being said, these 4 steps, we can get this covered and take care of it so we can go back to making money in these shops. And everybody likes making money. Are you with me, Ricky?
That's for sure. So, and just going back a little to touch on that worksite assessment, that is something that you really need to make sure that we're identifying areas. If you can implement social distancing, and maybe you have areas where you can't, and maybe you'll need barriers. PPE may not be enough, but you may need some PPE, and you might have areas where any of you who saw that debate last night saw how they had those plexiglass dividers between them, and I've seen those in confined areas that people are doing that on an assembly line type of a thing where you can create a little bit of separation. So those are the things that if you're doing those things and identifying areas, putting postings where people need to wear masks or what have you, that's going to go a long way to just making you, like I said, to keep your employees safe first and foremost, but also make them feel confident that you guys are doing the things that you need to and eliminate the chance of having an outbreak or having people complain and then having OSHA come down there. But let's get on and take a look, as far as the training. We really need to make sure that your employees receive the training. And any of you who attended our webinar back when all of this first started and we just started creating all these lessons, and we've written more since. In fact, I can't even fit them all onto one sheet, but these are the main things you need to make sure that you're training your employees on. You need to make sure that they're aware of whatever the sick leave policies that you have are, what COVID-19 is and how it spreads, what the symptoms are that are associated, what the reporting policies and procedures are, so they know who they need to talk to and so forth, how they can minimize the chances of catching it. What are the acceptable practices for social distancing, and what their responsibilities. The employee has their responsibilities as well at home and when they're away from work, to make sure that they're keeping themselves clean and healthy so that they don't get this and bring it into work to everybody. And then how to prevent the spread of the pandemics and other diseases in the workplace. So like Michael said, we created all of these lessons, and you can see here, Michael, all of these lessons, almost every one of them is available in a video. They're all in English and Spanish, and we have even more than you see there.
So the unique spot about us, and just to remind you if you don't know, is we create custom training for you. So when you're a client of ours and you're on our service paying your very low fees, of course, the logic of this is we will create you any lesson that you call in for. So when it comes to the pandemic, people started calling in for all sorts of things: how to change your gloves, how to clean, how to do this. And so we started creating the ones we thought were the best. And then obviously we leave it to you guys, our clients, to tell us what you really need. And then we start building these and putting those into safety video form. So Rick is right. So if you've got a unique spot that you got out there and you're saying, man, I just would love training on this, give us a call. Put in this request. I usually can put this out within 30 days for at least the PDF file, the written lesson, and then give me about another 30, 40 days and I can get a video out. But the logic of it is we want your people to have the training material they have, and that's why you're with us, because we're not going to nickel and dime you for every lesson or whatnot. Once you get on, this is a family thing. There's a lot of things going on out there, and we want to make sure you're taken care of with all the training you need without having to go, all right, do we got the budget for another pandemic training? No, that's not what we're doing. Let's give you the good stuff as it comes out so we don't have to worry about that. It's a great thing, Rick. Good.
Exactly. So that pretty much is the information that we had to share with you. Obviously, we're just a couple of months from, 2.5 months from all this coming out. So we just always, when we get this new information, we want to share it with you and make sure that you guys are up to date with the latest and greatest things that are going on to help keep your employees safe, and obviously to keep your business running and profitable, and to keep the government agencies off your back. So we're hoping that this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, hopefully we've already got some here. We're gonna bring Haven in to see what the questions are, and if you have any others, go ahead and type away, and we will get those answered for you. Haven, what do you got for us, bud?
I do got one question, but don't miss out on this opportunity to ask a professional. Just type your questions into the chat box. But Rick, how does a company know if their current safety plans are up to code with what OSHA expects?
Michael, go ahead. I'll let
Well,
you take that one.
if you don't know if your safety plan is up to code, it's probably not, because what you haven't done is updated it this year. And there's been a number of updates that have come out this year with the injury illness prevention plan that you're going to need to call us on, and we can tell you what those updates are. It may be just cheaper to have us do it for you, because once we do it for you once, we just maintain the compliance for no additional cost. So that may be something that you find, that if your programs, when it comes to COVID or any of the injury illness prevention plans, we can get those up to code, write them specifically, and our documentation team is capable of having that private interview with you to figure out what you do, how you do it, what are the specific differences, so that we can write this detailed for you. It is quite a process, and so these kind of things get away from us, and that's a good thing. Give us a call. That's not a problem, Haven. What else you got, bud?
We're happy to review them for you. Make sure you're up to date.
That's all I got, guys.
Let me tell you, Rick, the reason why we don't have many questions is because you do such a great job, Rick. It's certainly not because you're not the prettiest guy in the room, Rick. Let me just tell you, you're a good man. We put this webinar together for you. We hope you like what you're seeing out there. This is, hope is not lost. I hope this pandemic season, we look back on it in a few years and just go, man, talk about tough times. I mean, you talk about getting smoother as you get grounded through the rocks. This is a tough one. When I first saw these codes come out and I was reading them, I'm sitting here thinking of all of us in business, trying to run these businesses, the managers, the plant managers out there trying to do this, thinking, now I've got to make sure. I was trying to keep everybody safe, but now I've got to report this. What problems does this bring? And I just want to let you know that we're here for you if you need something. If you need something, our team is here for you to make this as easy as possible, so that we don't have to stress about how do we stay in business at this kind of time. I find it hard to believe sometimes of what certain governments are doing to keep us shut down or open us up, and how it works. And maybe they can see further down the path than we can because they're higher on the mountain. Maybe they can't. I don't know. But here at GotSafety, we are in the trenches with you, building what we can to make sure we comply with the regulations and get them to you in a professional, way that is spot on every time. Besides the first slide that Rick put 20 instead of 21. That is the only time we mess up. Am I right, Ricky? I'm just kidding. Bust me up a little bit fun.
Well, it
So,
happened.
Rick, do you have anything to say before I close this out here, brother?
No, I'd just like to thank all of you that, support GotSafety and work with us, and those of you that have taken time out of your day to learn what you really do need to know to protect your business, to protect your employees, and just to make sure that you've got a safe work environment for your folks there. And we really love doing this stuff for you, and we hope to be able to provide more of these for you, to give you more information as we get new information going forward.
Well, God bless you guys for coming, and I hope everything goes well. If you have any training needs or anything specific you need, you can give us a call. I'm Michael Crawley. This is Rick Roman, and we are the faces of GotSafety on this webinar, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.